Let me ask you, do you think we're impacted by, and any of you can answer this, do you think we're impacted most by the parent who hurt us most? Do you think that's the biggest influence in like how we project in our dating and adult life and our mating or whatever? Yeah, are we more like, do we more respond to the pain more or to the whatever nurturing we thought we saw?
I mean, I remember you said maybe a couple of episodes that you feel like we are more toxic, we're attracted to a thing, right? Mm-hmm. I think there's something to be said maybe in our nervous system that does drive us to be more aware of, to amplify the things that agitate that nervous system. So either anger or fear or whatever. So I do think that yes, we are probably more impacted by those negative things, right? Versus the love. Because I can imagine a parent who pours in all that stuff is like, well, damn, all this pouring in I did, like the mom who's still there when the father's gone, right? She could did all that pouring, right? Been there as much as she could, but the fact that he was not there still is going to outweigh that from, I think, a pain or a perspective. So that's my thoughts on it.
No, I think that's a really, really good point. Like, you know, they call it like the missing tile syndrome. Like if you got a room with 99 tiles and only one of them's missing, you immediately focus on the one that's missing and ignore the other 99 that are there. So I think, unfortunately, maybe the negative experiences kind of drive us, but it sometimes it can minimize the light and the positive things that happen by the parent who was there. So hopefully that's something we can be cognizant of and not fall into that.
So I actually 100% believe that it is the negative experiences and the trauma that drives us. So the parent who was absent or the parent that hurt the most was going to be the help shape the relationships that we're currently in. And that's not even just gender relationships, but like relationships between friends, relationships between, simply because we're still processing that hurt. We're still processing that pain. And until we figure out how to get over that hurt, how we can get over that pain, we continue to make choices based on the trauma that we may have experienced. But let's be honest, at some point we got to take responsibility and say, how much longer would I allow my childhood to affect me, or the pain or the drama or whatever the case may be in my family to affect me, before I say, let me move on. Let me go to counseling. Let me get some healing. Let me do this. Because you can't keep blaming your parents as an example for how you were raised. At some point, you got to say, okay, now it's on me. I'm a fully functional adult. It's now on me to take care of this.
No, I think you're right. I think we grow up learning to love, either from explicit lessons or implicit lessons. And then as adults, we learn to unlearn the things that we learned about love. We learn to unlearn the stories we told ourselves to help us to survive whatever our traumas were. And thinking the next question about, which parent this, I was like, they're both. Like my dad impacted me by his absence. I really starved for the male input and perspective. Like I really wanted to just pick his brain. And then I need to know even the stuff that he failed on. Just like, what were you thinking when you did that? What moves were you trying to make? I said out of my mind, I was not going to be him, right? I was not going to have a child somewhere else and a family over here. And so I was going to wait to commit and wait to get married and do this and this and that. So that's how he impacted me there. I ended up having a child over here and a child over there. Did not get away from that. My mom affected me because I remember, this is a story, I don't think I've ever brought it back to her. And so, Mom, if you're watching now, sorry you're hearing about it now with everybody else. But I was like a little jit, y'all. I was a little kid and we were in church and they were having a praise service or something. And I saw a few rows up, this boy and this girl, little kids my age, they were hugging. Well, I started to get a biological reaction. It was the first time I had taken note. Maybe I was distracted the other times, but I'm really young. So I stopped, not wise, but I stopped her doing her praise thing. And I'm like, hey. It's like, when I see this thing, my thing starts moving. She was like, don't ever say that. Look at her. And she went off. And what I learned in that moment was not that there are biological functions that a boy needs to be aware of, or not that, hey, you're growing into your sexuality at whatever age you're growing into it, and this is how we're going to progress. What I learned was that there was now this person that I could not share everything about myself with. I couldn't go and walk through life and say, hey, can you help me figure this out? That shaped our relationship. It also shaped my relationship with my kids, so that I got to the point where whatever they asked me, if I think you can handle it, I'm going to tell you. If I don't think you can handle it, I'm going to say, ask me later. But I'm never going to shut the door for conversation, right? So even when I went to find a partner, this is going to sound really weird. My wife, my current wife, has the same first name as my mom. It may sound Freudian. whatever. I don't know. Okay. I just wasn't going to miss out on a good woman because she happened to be named after my mom. That's why I was with her. You know what I mean? But I do think when I look at it, I think she kind of reminds me of the woman my mom was before she joined the church. And my mom joining the church is what eventually led to my mother and my father splitting because she got super saved and he wasn't with it. So it's interesting, this dichotomy of what we learn as we're watching life and how we rationalize the changes that have happened and how we purpose not to repeat those things. And then sometimes I find that I end up repeating it anyway. You know what I mean? Even though I wasn't trying to.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say that actually makes sense because sometimes one of the biggest things that I learned for the generational is that when our parents, especially our parents, right, we're in a certain group, I'll acknowledge that. And so our parents, they grew up in an era, especially when it comes to emotions and expression, where they grew up in an era where they actually didn't express themselves. They weren't allowed to emote, so to speak. And as a matter of fact, they grew up, and I know this because my mother told me this is why she's a certain way, was that providing food, clothing, and shelter, i.e. the basic necessities, was all that was required. And by default, that meant she loved you or your parents loved you because they provided those things. And so my question is, are we like, as a community, Black community, are we passing down love or are we actually passing dysfunction as tradition when we talk about family dynamics and generational curses?
Hold on. I want to go back real quick. I think you just shifted real quick on the conversation.
It was smooth though.
Yeah, it was. I thought she was still on topic.
Yeah.
And then she just kind of switched it up on us. But no, I wanted to say something though, like, because I feel like it's super important for people when they're trying to figure out what's going on in their lives to figure out how they're impacted. One of the things for me in going through therapy was to recognize how those things, because it's not about finding excuses. Sometimes people are like, oh my God, you went through that as a kid and you're never too old to realize what's going on with you. There are people 50 years old, 60 years old that never stop to just ask themselves any pertinent questions in terms of why they feel how they feel or why they are the way that they are, right? We're in a generation now, in a time now where people are talking about mental health and all that good shit. And I think it has to start with being honest with yourself first. Because for me, one of the jewels that I think helped in my marriage, but also me as a man, was recognizing that as much as I was running away from my father's image, I was in my father's image.
Yes.
Right. And what was crazy was that my wife probably already knew that. Like, I was the only one that was pretending to be something I was not. And that pretending, that discontent creates problems in your relationship from your own making and doing, because the other person's rocking with you for who you are, but you're the one that can't be real with yourself.
Right.
Because low key, you don't want to be this thing because maybe you were hurt by the thing that you don't want to be. Right. It wasn't until I think, and even now at 48, the more that I embrace all of me, the truth, including how my parents' relationships impacted me. People like, yo, you have a relationship with your mom now, right? I do too. That relationship was impacted by how we grew up. Like, you can't magically create a relationship that never really existed before. If we wasn't on huggy time, if it wasn't loving and all that, now you may be towards the end of the road and maybe just extra proud now. Maybe that's not my experience. So we're not going to force that relationship. But what happens is people can't be honest about what that is. They want something that never really happened to a certain extent, that discontent. So all I'm saying is that I think a lot of us, a lot more, especially our generation, a lot of us are impacted by our parents. And I don't think enough of us take the time out just to be like, hold on, why am I dating like this? Right? It got to be the crazy one. We all know, like, the girl who didn't grow up with her dad in their house. Oh, she's a hoe now. But there's girls who grew up with their dads in their house. And their dads were a certain type of way. Not that she's a hoe. Sorry.
Jay, you went there.
But how she shows up in relationships, how she's relating to you, even the choice of you can be informed by how it happened with her band. So I just feel like the more people who are aware of that, then maybe can kind of give you some insight. And then maybe if you want to change it, I'll just say that even though it kind of made me a womanizer like my dad, I don't really change that because I love y'all. You know what I'm saying? I just learned how to harness my womanizing to do more good for the community as opposed to taking advantage of the community.
Give back.
Yeah, exactly. My dad got 7 kids with 5 women. I got 1 boy at 4. If you want to talk about some areas I was able to dodge that.
Winning.
Yeah.
Okay, now other areas, you know what I mean? I'm still working on it.